Hello friends, welcome to the series of lectures on digital marketing and e-commerce. I am Dr. Suchita Vishwakarma, Assistant Professor with Department of Management, School of Management Sciences, Lucknow. Students, this is our last lecture of this particular subject, that is digital marketing and e-commerce, and in this particular lecture of mine, I will be talking about electronic data interchange process. This is one important and one such aspect which each of you as a student of digital marketing and e-commerce must know, because in the absence of the knowledge of this particular concept, you will not be able to achieve your goal of becoming a successful manager in the field of digital marketing. So let us understand that what electronic data interchange process is all about. In short, electronic data interchange is also called as, popularly known as, EDI. So, electronic data interchange or EDI is a computer to computer exchange process where the business documents are sent from one computer to another computer in different kinds of format as required by the companies. What happens that earlier what used to happen, that in case of the offline purchase or sales in between two companies, or even between the companies and the customers, what used to happen, that the invoices were generated physically, which were then sent in physical format to the customer, or maybe to the another business organization. Now, since this concept is more accurate or more widely used in case of B2B transactions, so let us restrict ourselves to in that area, and let me make you understand also in that by using the example of the same reference. So, what happens that, for example, there is a company which is placed in city A, and there is another company which is placed in city B, and there is a sales and purchase which is required to be happen, or the trade transaction is happening between these two companies. Now, physically, if you talk about the physical invoice, for taking the physical invoice to the company, there is requirement of a person to move from one city to another, and then obviously the or maybe it can be sent through the courier or maybe the postal services, which would also require at least 2 to 3 days. And then once the second company, the company B, has received the invoice, then they will be completing the operations, and then they will initiate the payment procedure. So, this complete thing would require a lot of time. And in case of B2B transactions, the invoices, the bills, the documents, there is a requirement of sharing all these things not only with one company but with multiple organizations. For example, there are certain documents which may be required to be sent to the government organizations for licenses, certain kind of for road clearance, also certain kind of documents needs to be sent to the people. There are certain documents which may be required to be sent to the transporters. So, there can be involvement of many organizations, and for dispatching or maybe sending the documents physically would take a lot of time. So, this complete physical exchange of documents elongated the complete transaction in earlier days. Now, with coming of the computerization, with coming of the digital concepts, this process also got reduced, and through the usage of EDI system, the paperless transfer started happening, and which not only reduced the time but also increased the speed through which the working got completed. So, basically, let us understand that EDI is basically an exchange which happens between computer to computer, and it is related to the transfer of various kinds of documents, business documents, in different formats. And EDI is basically a standard electronic format that replaces paper based documents, and it involves the usage of hardware, software, and various standards also that accommodate the EDI process. So, over here you can see a picture that the transaction of data is happening between two companies, that company A and company B, and as per International Data Exchange Association, that is IDEA, formerly had defined EDI as the transfer of structured data by agreed message standards from one computer system to another by electronic means. Let us also have a better understanding of the various terminologies used in this particular definition. Let us understand the concept of structured data first. So, structured data is basically the data which are arranged in a particular manner and has certain reasons to be placed in a particular format, and has to be strictly followed also in the same format, and the order of the order and the sequence is also very rigid. So, basically EDI transactions are composed of codes, values and short pieces of text if necessary, and each element has strict defined purpose. So, the purpose of such kind of data is very significant, and so alteration of the structure of the or the format is not possible. Then the second concept is agreed message standard. The EDI transaction basically has to have certain standard format also. So, this particular standard is being agreed upon by both the parties, both the partners, and both the partners, that means company A and company B has agreed that this is the format in which we would be sharing the information, and has been agreed upon because that would ease the working process of both the companies. Then the third terminology which was used from one computer to another, which basically meant that the messages or the data which be transferred from one computer application to another computer application would be read by only the people who are responsible and who are allowed or authorized to do so. That means there would be no transfer of data from anyone who is non-authorized to do so. And the fourth terminology explains, that means the fourth terminology, which is by electronic means, says that the data transfer would be not done in a physical format, but would be done through the usage of anything like magnetic tapes, floppy disk, or any kind of cloud virtual format or the clouds or so. And so, this is what can be understood as a concept of EDI. Now, as I was telling you earlier, that why do we need to exchange data or papers when we are doing B2B transaction? This is something which needs to be understood properly. That means over here, if you see there is a company who is basically involved in manufacturing of a product. Now, for manufacturing a particular product, they may require different kind of products, different kind of raw materials to be received from different kind of suppliers. Now, let us say that these suppliers are all from different cities and are not from the city in which the manufacturer is placed. And then after manufacturing happens, the manufacturer is obviously required to send the finished goods to the different retailers for the sales to happen. Now, obviously, this manufacturer needs to send different kind of informations related to the requirement of different kind of raw materials to the supplier 1, supplier 2, supplier 3, and similarly to the retailer 1, retailer 2 and 3. Then obviously, for in between these in between the transaction of the manufacturer and the supplier also, there is requirement of documents to be sent to the transporter also, to the government also, as I had shared earlier. So, these are the various reasons why exchange of paper is required. That means, there are different kind of papers which provides different kind of informations, and only after the excess of informations, certain permissions, certain transits are allowed. So, this is the reason of exchange of paper. Now, over here you can see that how EDI works. Now, EDI is basically over here you can see this is a purchasing organization. Purchasing organization basically creates barcodes, and these barcodes, as you all already know, that these are the various codes which contains lots of information. So, these are encrypted data codes which contains lots of information, and these barcodes are sent to the this is the transfer of physical products and the EDI. So, the transfer of physical product happens only after the EDI or the transaction of documents has happened. So, once the purchasing organization has generated a barcode, they send these barcodes and they send the documents to the supplier. The supplier again generates certain barcodes, certain information, and which is given shared with the transporter, and the shipment takes place. And even in the case of payment also, this happens once the information is received. So, now let us understand how EDI works. EDI is basically based on the standards, and these standards are the basis of EDI conversions, and several organizations define EDI as the message standards, including audit, TRADCOM, GS1, PEPAL, and accredited standard X12, ASC X12. So, EDI is basically a concept which has been given by various organizations, and the standards of EDI has been given by various organizations, and various organizations, depending on the industry, depending on the work they have laid down various kinds of formats in the way in which the data, exchange of information, exchange of data, or the exchange of documents needs to happen for them to proceed the work conveniently. So, in general, there are two basic types of EDI transmissions. The first is the point to point or direct connections, and the second is value added network, which is more popularly known as WAN. So, let us understand that what these two EDI transmissions are. The point to point or direct connections are basically between two computers or systems which are connected with no intermediary over the internet. That means they are generally secure protocols, which can be in the form of LAN or so, or even through the gateway system, that the system or the data sharing methods which one company has allowed to the other. So, over here there is no internet connectivity which is required, while in case of value added network, a third party network manages the transmission, generally the mailboxing paradigm or so. So, these two kind of EDI transmission methods can be used in different organizations for different purposes. Usually, the point to point direct connection is used within the same organization for transfer of data within the departments or for the inter-departmental purposes also, and the value added network is for usually for transactions between the companies to happen, different companies to happen. Now, let us talk about the different components of EDI. We also are required to understand the components, because only if we understand the components well, then only we will be able to transfer the data, transfer the documents through the help of this interchange process. So, the first component is the application service, and this application service is basically, the purpose is to provide the link between the application and the EDI. It allows the person, the individual who is responsible for sending the document to send the document from the EDI system, and so it is used to transfer documents from business applications to EDI document destination, and can be intra company or even to the external companies. So, over here you can see that this is a business application and this is a file server, and the business application has sent the information to the file server, which is which can be a management interface or could be anything like so, and so the data sharing can happen within the organization or even the outside the organization. Then we have translation service, and translation service is one which basically converts the outgoing data from the internal format file to agreed external format, and this is basically responsible for translating internal documents from external format to EDI format, because there may be chances that two companies are not following similar format. So, the exchange the data needs to be, since in case of EDI the format has to be agreed upon, as we had discussed earlier also. So, the translation needs to happen from the external format to the internal format according so that it can be conveniently used by the people. And then we have communication services. So, communication services is third very important component which helps the two companies to communicate the services, send and receive transmissions of files that has happened between the two partners either directly or through value added network. So, as you can see, the files have been transmitted, have been received by the external body through the various gateway systems. Now, let us also talk about the EDI standard. As I was telling you all about that, EDI standards are ones which can be understood as the rules, regulations, or maybe the standards, or maybe the protocols which are framed by various industries. And the purpose of framing these protocols is to generalize a particular kind of format which is which can be most effectively used by most of the organizations, can be understood by organizations, and brings a commonality. That means the concept, the similar kind of format is being, if used by all the organizations, will make it or rather enable the other party to use it and understand it. So, EDI standards are basically a set of rules agreed upon, accepted, and voluntarily adhered to, by which the data is structured into message formats for exchange of business and operational information, and this definition was given by Baby Daniel J. And this EDI standard concept, EDI concept was started in 1950s and 60s, and it was first developed for transportation, warehousing, and roastery industries, because there the data the information of the exchange of document is very important, as I said earlier also, that in case of transportation services, you are required to submit certain documents to the government authorities, to the roadways. Only after then you are allowed to do the transportation services. So, during in such kind of industries, they were prominently used. Then it provides a commonality for the format, as I said, that if a similar kind of format is being used by everyone, it will bring lot of ease in doing the business. Then interpretation for communicated information intelligibility to both sender and receiver. So, interpretation would also become convenient for both the parties. American National Standard Institute ANSI developed the first national cross industry EDI standards. However, over here you need to understand that earlier within industry standards were framed, but ANSI was one organization which also framed standards for transactions that could happen between two different kind of industries. And ANSI X12 is the standard for EDI transactions in US, and United Nations EDI, however, this is also used in India also, and United Nations EDI for administration, commerce and trade is the standard for international EDI transactions. So, let us also have a look over here that what is the scope of EDI nowadays, and who are the people who can use EDI concept. So, this as you can see that there are list of people from different industries, from different walk of life, who can use this particular concept of EDI very effectively in their day to day working. And the governments are also required to transfer the documents, or maybe share the documents with other government, other bodies. The central government, the state government are required to share the documents with the other states, or maybe the other government bodies, or even the private sector. So, for them also EDI is of much use. Then the healthcare industry, in healthcare industry, the hospitals, pharmacies, lab, insurance companies are also required to do a lot of data sharing, and lot of exchange of data, exchange of documents is also required. So, for them also it is very important. Then in retail industry, again it is very much important. Retail industry basically includes the FMCG and the consumer durables, or even the fashion products, or the apparels, or whatever you want to say, even the stationeries and such kind of things. So, over there also these big physical stores need, or maybe the manufacturers are required to share information related from their to their suppliers and the distributors. So, this would help in the managed inventory. So, for them also EDI is of much use. Then in obviously in case of transportation, maybe through any kind of mode, then for them also EDI is very important. Not only this, the even the companies like the insurance companies, the manufacturing industry, automotive industry, petroleum, electronic, chemical, banks, even financial bodies, constructions and advertising. For all of them EDI is very important, because for all of them the now for nowadays what happens, that there is a lot of exchange of document required, because unless and until most of the people are doing transactions online, and once you want to identify and authenticate any individual, you can do it only once you have verified the documents. So, even when you are doing investments also, to in these days you need to upload your PAN card, you need to upload your Aadhaar card, and so again such kind of for such kind of small transactions also by retailers also, this concept is very required. So, EDI is one particular application which has eased the complete process of online transactions. Now, let us talk about the benefits of EDI. What are there are various benefits of EDI. The first being the cost saving. The benefit of EDI in terms of cost saving is reduction of employee hours involved in creation and handling paper documentation. Earlier, what was required, that people had to spend lot of time in handling the data and segregating the data. So, that is now not required. Then a reduction of cost of fund transfer, reduction of, in the cost of storage space, and no mailing costs. So, all these are the reasons due to which the companies are able to save on their cost, and able to save on their time as well, and save on the their human skills, I mean the employees that are required. Then EDI also increases the speed of the working. So, forwarding the documents through a computer network makes it very faster to be received by the other organization or the other person, after which they can initiate their processing. So, this basically helps in increasing the speed of the complete work. Then obviously it also leads to a lot of increasing the accuracy. That means that the information is shared with the other company in the same format, and there is no loss of data, or no I mean there are no chances of lost of the document as also. So, EDI minimizes the need of rekeying information, and communication is direct and easily verifiable, and no mail is lost. So, there is a complete accuracy which is maintained. Then obviously this particular EDI is very secure also, because there is no scope of any kind of interruption or falsification that can happen within this EDI process. And obviously system integration is one very important concept, where EDI software can be interfaced with any kind of internal system, so that incoming data trigger applications and further automation of data processing can also happen automatically. Obviously, nowadays you must have heard about the JIT concept. Many of the companies are actually working to achieve JIT concepts, where they are trying to reduce their waiting time, increase their efficiency as well. So, this EDI concept also supports the JIT concept, that is just in time, by speeding up the communication with the other companies, and with a reduced cost. So, these are the various benefits due to which EDI has been very popularly accepted by most of the companies worldwide. Now, let us also talk about the disadvantages of EDI. Contrasted to XML, which was not I mean which was a method of transferring of information and documents earlier, but this XML method was not a standardized method. However, EDI is more standard, and so it is much better to use EDI. Various standard bodies have developed standard document formats for EDI, and this basically becomes a problem for cross compatibility, because there may be some organizations which have floated in another kind of format, there may be some other organizations which have floated in another format. However, both of them may be standard formats, but the usage of one may lead to problems of accepting the other. Then annual revision of standards is the I mean the world is very dynamic, the business industry is very dynamic. So, there is a requirement to revise the standards, and this also is becoming a lot of problem, because most of the companies are investing a lot of money in adopting this EDI process. And an extreme expense makes it difficult, because EDI, as I said, that EDI is a adoption of EDI is a expensive process, and many large companies basically prefer to work only with those companies who have started or utilizing EDI. So, it basically acts as a restriction or limits the opportunity of smaller organizations which are yet to adopt EDI. So, this is also one of the disadvantages of EDI. So, with this I finish up my today's lecture over here, and with this I would just conclude this particular subject also, and for detailed understanding you can go to these references. Thank you.